So I'm not exactly sure how to tell you guys this one, but let me give it a shot. So last night I was actually up on the second story of our barn and I was hanging out with our two newest barn cats. We have landed on Molly and Ginny, or Ginevra, as the names of our two barn cats.
Ginny dear, congratulations on making Gryffindor. Your father and I are so proud.
As you guys saw in one of our recent videos, we adopted some barn cats. I have them inside the barn because they're currently being trained to our property. They've only been here for a few days, and if you want a barn cat to stick around, you really need to have it stay in one space for a couple of weeks so it learns its new home territory. And anyway, because Ginny and her mama cat Molly were up in the barn, I've been spending a lot of time in there so that they also get to know me and recognize me as their person. While some people are very content to have their barn cats not interact with them at all, that is not how we do things here at Goldshaw Farm. And so I was hanging out and playing with and petting Molly and Ginny. I got to admit, even though I'm not a cat person, honestly, I swear I am not a cat person, I have really enjoyed those two cats. They are both very, very friendly. Molly is just very much a cat that likes to be pet. Ginny is just completely full of energy and she's gonna make an awesome barn cat one day. Now, pretty much each night when I'm about to leave them after hanging out with them for a little bit, I'll usually feed them. That way they don't try to sneak out. You see, Molly in particular has been very aggressive about trying to slip out of the room and explore more of the barn. She and Pablo Barn Cat have also started to sense each other out, and there's definitely some cat territorialism going on there, and there's a little bit of friction going on.
Not my daughter, you.
And so suffice to say, I am trying to be very careful to make sure Molly doesn't escape, because I know that if she escaped, she could leave and she could try to wander off back to the farm that she came from. She could go somewhere else. She could get eaten by a coyote. All sorts of bad stuff would happen. And so I was doing my darndest to make sure that she didn't escape. And I also knew that Pablo Barn Cat was hanging out right by the door of the room where Ginny and Molly are living right now. And anyway, the moment that I opened the door just a crack, Pablo Barn Cat shot right in there, and he and Molly just went at it. You know, just screeching and shrieking and clawing at each other. It was a straight up cat fight. And as they were fighting, Molly used that as her opportunity to sprint out and jump out the door, go right between my legs, and then the two of them went into the darkness of the barn, and I didn't know what to do. By the way, in case you guys are wondering about the health status of our little goslings, we still have these three little guys here, and they're doing really good. They're growing up and they're getting bigger. So this little one right here, this was the gosling that got the beat down from the mom, and he is growing up just fine. So even though you had a rough start, buddy, you're doing really good, and it makes me happy to see just how well you're doing. And yeah, I know just how bad I screwed up this situation, and it makes me feel so lucky to know that he's still healthy and he's gonna grow up to be just fine. Oh yes, you are. So now all the chaos with the cats happened around 9 o'clock at night, and so it was just getting dark, and especially inside this barn, it was getting really dark. Now I wasn't too worried about Pablo Barn Cat running away. You know, he's been a barn cat here on our farm for a little over 3 years now, and he absolutely thinks that this is home. In fact, he's one of those rare cats that I can actually just call him and he's gonna come to me. So I really wasn't too worried about his disappearance. But when it came to Molly Barn Cat, I had a lot more reason for concern. And like I said, she just hasn't been trained to our farm yet, and so I was absolutely panicked. I was wandering around this dark barn with a flashlight looking for her. I was thinking about busting out the Have-A-Heart trap as a way to try to catch her. I really wasn't quite sure what I could or should do to try to find her and save her. But that's when Ginny Barn Cat, Little Gin Gin as I've started to call her, she absolutely saved the day. You see, she has never ever been separated from her mom in her entire 7 weeks of life. And so the moment that Molly Barn Cat left her room, she just started mewling. And I mean, it was like one of those pathetic kitten mules. Mew, 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 mew. You know, and she was just doing it over and over and over again, and it was so sad. And at first, I found it absolutely heartbreaking. Here, I had lost this little kitten's mother on her. She was gonna grow up an orphan. She was gonna be all alone in this big bad barn.
She was gonna have to contend with Pablo Barn Cat herself. She was gonna have to find her way, and it was all my gosh darn fault.
But like I said, that's when she ended up saving the day, because her sad kitten crying is what attracted Molly back to the barn.
Several days later.
And so this is the awkward part of the video where I have to now explain to you guys that I screwed something up. You see, the camera that I usually use has this like little cable here. Its job is to connect the microphone to the camera. Well, anyway, at some point while I was shooting the video, this part of the cable got disconnected from the microphone and none of the audio for the remaining part of this video recorded. But I don't want to leave you guys hanging with the end of the story, as well as a couple of other things that I show in the video, so I'm gonna now voice over the rest of this video, and I will also try to add some additional sound effects. Joining me for this recording is Lil Barn Cat. She might do a couple guest sounds as well, since this is a video about cats.
Flashback.
So you see, Ginny Barn Cat's mewling and crying attracted Molly Barn Cat back to the space where I was keeping both of them. And so as I was just about ready to set up my have a heart trap, I spotted Molly and called her over, and she came right over to me, and I brought her back into the room. And so our story has a happy ending. Molly Barn Cat has been reunited with Ginny Barn Cat. They're both back in their room being happy and healthy. I know that Molly Barn Cat might not love being in this room, but again, it's only for a couple of weeks. I have a vet appointment scheduled with her. My plan is to get her fixed, and then once she's got her shots and once she's fixed, I'll feel so much better about letting her free range. But at this stage of the game, I just want to do the best I can to protect her and her little one so that they can become barn cats patrolling our grounds for years and years to come. You know, sometimes when you're raising animals, it's often like raising children. And because of that, you've got to sometimes do something that's counter to what they actually want. And you have to think what's in their best interest. And when it comes to keeping Molly in this room, it's definitely in her best interest. Oh, and for those of you who are concerned about something like this happening again, I actually installed some poultry netting right at the base of the door. That way nobody can charge in or charge out. It's not to say that it's going to be completely impervious, but it'll help make it easier for me to contain either Pablo or Molly if something similar like this starts to happen again in the future. Because I fully expect it to happen again in the future. As far as other cool stuff that you guys missed in this video, first off, I gave a quick tour of the kitchen orchard, and it looks like a lot of things are coming in really well. It looks like our apple trees are going to produce some more apples this year. It also looks like we're about to be flush with mulberries very, very soon. Allison's garden is up and running and looking beautiful. At this point in the season, it's fully planted and we have a lot of things growing. It's going to be a good mix of vegetables to supply our kitchen. We don't grow garden vegetables for sale, like as part of our farm business. This is solely just for us and our dinner table. You probably noticed these white sheets. They're actually cloths that actually let light pass through. We use them to cover the crops, particularly at night, because here in Vermont, the temperatures, even though they can be like in the 80s or 90s during the day, can drop down to the 40s at night. And so just to give certain things like squash and tomatoes and peppers their best chance at growing and doing well, we cover them up at night. The teenage goslings are growing up and doing really, really well. It won't be long at all before I actually release them and just let them completely free range like the rest of the adult geese.
Beyond that, goslings and barn cats aren't the only things that are starting to grow and come up here on the farm. As I showed you in a previous video, it looked like our silkies were hatching, and we do have 3 silky chicks that have hatched. All of them are the offspring of Penny, who is a full-bred silky. The mothers are either satins or bantams, and so we have a nice mix of birds. So I'm really excited to see what these birds grow up to be and look like. If they're females, we'll end up keeping them around the farm. If they're males, they'll probably end up in the freezer later this year. And so yeah, that's what's going on here around the farm. Sorry again for the technical difficulties. My apologies. It won't happen again, or I hope it doesn't happen again, but the chances are it probably does happen again. If you guys are actually curious about the origin story of Pablo Barn Cat, check out this video right here. I think you're gonna enjoy it. He is a great cat who's got a very interesting and actually somewhat sad background story. And so I think you're gonna like this video. Thanks for watching, guys.